Hi everyone. Today we're talking about coping skills that you think are working to help you manage your anxiety or depression, but in some of these cases, these might actually be making things worse. So if you're new here, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining me. I make videos once a week about mental health topics, so make sure that you click on the subscribe button so that you never miss an update. And if you're coming back, thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate you and your continued support. Make sure that you hit the like button to let me know that you enjoy this video, and it also gives me tons of positive reinforcement to keep making videos. Now, make sure that you have your cup of coffee and let's get started. The first coping skill that is not working is called vaping or smoking. So a lot of people turn to vaping or smoking to relax. You might think that you feel super stressed out and smoking or vaping may help temporarily ease your nerves and help you relax. But the bad news is that research into smoking and stress has shown that instead of helping people relax, smoking actually increases anxiety and tension. Okay, so nicotine creates an immediate sense of relaxation. So people smoke with the belief that it reduces all of that stress and anxiety. And this happens because nicotine stimulates and releases the chemical dopamine in our brain. And dopamine is responsible for triggering all of those positive feelings. And actually, many times when people have depression, their dopamine is low. So many people with depression actually end up smoking because it temporarily increases dopamine levels. The downside is that smoking actually encourages the brain to switch off its own mechanism for making dopamine. So in the short term, it's making you feel good, but in the long term, your supply of dopamine decreases naturally, which prompts you to smoke even more. Also, this feeling of relaxation that we get from smoking or vaping is temporary. And when we stop smoking, we experience withdrawal. So with the withdrawal symptoms, it can feel a lot like anxiety and depression. So some of these symptoms include anxiety, sadness, irritability, tension, etc. So when we stop smoking, these symptoms show up. And then it leaves us thinking that the smoking was actually helping. We might think, well, I wasn't feeling this anxious when I smoked, which is true to some extent. But remember, it's temporary and it could actually make your anxiety worse in the long run, as I mentioned, due to your body stopping the natural production of its own happy chemicals. The issue is that when people stop smoking, they experience the withdrawal symptoms that I mentioned earlier, and that definitely doesn't feel good. So then they revert back to smoking because, again, it temporarily reduces that feeling of anxiety, and it becomes this vicious cycle. But if you can stick it out, I promise it will pay off. And if you don't think that you can do it on your own because you've been smoking for such a long time, maybe contact a doctor. They have tons of resources and treatments that they can provide you with to help you stop. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I smoke weed, not nicotine, so it must be better, right? Not so much. Which brings me to my second coping skill that you thought was working, which is smoking weed or marijuana. So marijuana has the following symptoms. So it creates impaired short-term memory, impaired attention and judgment, impaired coordination. It increases your heart rate, increases paranoia, impairs your learning, creates sleep problems, and can also create psychosis, which is a temporary loss of reality. This one is a little bit less common, but it can happen when smoking weed in large amounts. Now, you might be thinking, well, aren't they allowing medical marijuana to be used for anxiety, depression, and chronic pain? And the answer is yes, because marijuana can be helpful for many things, including anxiety and sleep problems. But when you talk to a doctor and you actually get a prescription, you're ensuring that one, there is no underlying medical condition or mental health condition that can be leading to your feelings of anxiety or that can be worsened by marijuana. And you're provided with a recommended dosage and high quality marijuana. In most cases, the marijuana that you're prescribed is not going to be the same or might not be the same as the one that you get from your friends. Another difference is that the doctor may prescribe you a CBD product only or a THC product only, or maybe a hybrid of the two, but with the right concentration to help with your particular issue and who you are as a person in your own biology. The next scoping skill that you think is working but isn't is drinking alcohol. So at first, drinking can reduce fears and take your mind off your troubles. It can help you feel less shy. It can give you a boost in mood, and it can make you feel overall relaxed. So in fact, alcohol's effects can be similar to those of anti-anxiety medications. So occasionally having a drink with alcohol isn't really dangerous if your doctor approves and you don't have any other medical conditions. But once you start drinking, you can actually build a tolerance to the de-stressing effects of alcohol. So this can make anxiety and stress even more difficult to cope with. So that sense of relaxation that you feel when you drink can be attributed to your what we call the blood alcohol content, the BAC. So when our BAC levels rise, it leads to a temporary feeling of excitement. But feelings of depression can come back as you start to drop down. And as a result, it's possible that when you have a few drinks, you make your BAC level rise and then fall back to normal again, and you can become actually more anxious than you were before you started drinking. This is called alcohol-induced anxiety. So alcohol changes the level of serotonin and other neurotransmitters in the brain, which can actually worsen anxiety. So in fact, you can feel more anxious after the alcohol wears off and that alcohol-induced anxiety kicks in. And this can last for several hours and even for an entire day after drinking. The next coping skill that is not healthy is avoidance. So avoidance is probably one of the most common coping skills that I see in my mental health practice. Avoidance, put simply, is to avoid the so-called negative feelings or thoughts that we don't want to experience. We can use avoidance by coping with the previous mentioned coping skills such as smoking or drinking. But we also do this in other ways. So anything that we use to distract ourselves from the feelings that we don't like is considered avoidance, including some of the coping strategies that might be deemed as healthy. So for example, going to the gym is usually a healthy coping strategy, but if you're going to the gym excessively, or if you're using the gym to avoid a feeling or avoid facing a problem, then there's a good chance that you're using it as an avoidance strategy. So avoidance works in the short term because it temporarily distracts us from the problem, but in the long run, it can actually get worse. And my last coping skill that's probably not working is being overly positive. There's a lot of misinformation out there about positivity. I call them the good vibes only team. Don't get me wrong, good vibes are good and fun, but trying to be positive all the time and trying to always see the silver lining can serve as a form of avoidance, which was my previous coping strategy. The truth is that we need to allow what we call negative feelings have space too. Okay, all feelings serve a purpose, and if we expect ourselves to always have good thoughts, we will be highly disappointed in ourselves and feel like failures. So let's take a look at positive affirmations as an example. So positive affirmations have been shown to work if the affirmations that you are saying are believed to be true by you. So for example, if you think that you are smart, and you generally think this, and you want to affirm it to yourself when you make a mistake at work, so you can say, oh, I'm smart, I'm good, then you're likely to believe it. However, if you don't generally believe that you are smart, and then you try to affirm yourself that you are smart when you make a mistake at work, you will actually begin to associate that affirmation, the I am smart affirmation, with the mistake, and it kind of like gets lost in the mix, and it won't actually get you to believe that you're smart. It can actually make you feel worse. It just becomes another phrase, meaningless and frustrating. So positive affirmations as a means to feel better are wasting your time. Instead, try to see what options you have in a given situations. Allow yourself to feel whatever feeling is coming up and notice if there's a message behind it. So with any of these techniques that I'm talking about, we're using all of these to try to avoid something. The best thing that you can do is try to listen to that feeling inside of you. So what is it? Do I feel sadness? Do I feel anxiety? Do I feel anger? Am I frustrated? What is it that's getting me to feel this way? Is there something I can do about it right now? And if the answer is no, then what can I do in the moment? What do I have control over? And taking the steps to do that, but making sure that whatever steps you take are in line with whatever values you have for your life. So what kind of person you want to be, how you want to behave, how you want to be remembered. Chances are, if you're doing all of these things to avoid these feelings, you're going against who you really want to be. You're using them as a means to numb yourself, which again, in the short term, it can help because you'll forget about it for the time being. But in the long run, this is probably going to make things much worse, and you're just going to accumulate all of these feelings that have nowhere to go. Those were my coping skills that you're probably using that are not helpful. I want to hear from you. I want to know, what coping skills do you use? Are you not sure if they're avoidance or if they're healthy skills? Let me know in the comments below, or DM me on my Instagram. I'm very active on there as well. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you found it helpful. Please be sure to give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.